So good day everyone, we will be discussing about science journalism. So what is science journalism? Science journalism conveys reporting about science to the public. The field typically involves interactions between scientists, journalists, and the public. Science journalism is a specialized form of journalism, predominantly covering issues such as science, medicine, and technology. It is also a field that reports back to the overall public about scientific matters. Modern science journalism dates back to Digdarshan, that which means showing the direction. That was an educational monthly magazine started publication in 1818 from Srirampura, Bengal, India. Digdarshan carried articles on different aspects of science, such as plants, steamboats, and others. For many people, print, audiovisual, and online media are the main source they use to get to know something about these fields. Hence, science journalism has an important role for the society. However, when looking at science journalism and the research in that area more closely, then a variety of different approaches paint a rather dark picture. Firstly, there is a lot of research criticizing science journalism and science journalists. What these studies focus on the science journalist, work and role of the society, the routines and practices, the reporting on specific scientific issues, as well as the relationship between journalists and the scientists. Secondly, in some countries, science journalism seems to be a crisis due to increasing digitization and changing media landscapes. Science journalism is declining in these countries and many journalists have lost their jobs. However, assessing the quality and appropriateness of science journalism should be based on journalistic and not on scientific criteria. And these criteria should be used when trying to describe what science journalism is and what not, how science journalism operates and how not, and how best to describe the role science journalism has for the society.
Now, let's talk on the importance of science journalism. The role of science journalism is not only to explain the results of scientific studies to a general audience, but also to help distinguish between well-supported and weak conclusions and examine possible conflicts of interest on the part of the scientist. When reporting on a study, a good science journalist provides context and explains how it fits within previous work in the field. According to Maclean's former science editor Kate Lunau, in an ideal world, science journalism will make science stronger by shining a light upon it. For example, scientific studies on the relationship between drinking coffee and cancer have produced inconsistent results. And that is according to a 2020 article in BMC Cancer. Because of this inconsistency, science journalists must be careful when writing about the relationship between coffee and cancer. If they are not careful, bad science journalism may be one of the reasons that many people will not believe in science anymore. Science journalism also have characteristics. And some of these are: it is newsworthiness, novelty, mass appeal, human interest, highlighting or protecting the public interest, investigative, audience fit, good writing or a story well told, context setting such as sounds in radio, and structure. Now let us talk on the difference between science and journalism. Compared to science, journalists work at a supersonic speed, whereas a scientific journal can claim rapid publication if it only takes 2 months from submission to print. A news journalist is expected to write up a story in hours. Well, news must be new, and if one of their rivals scoops them, they lose the story. Does journalism relate to science? Science journalists can be seen as the gatekeepers of scientific information. Just like traditional journalists, science journalists are responsible for what truths reach the public. Scientific information is often costly to access. Well, that's all for our report. We hope that you have learned something in us. Thank you for listening and God bless.